Welcome to this special edition of Futuris, where we'll be discussing the missions that Europe's launching to find solution to the main challenges of our time: adaptation to climate change, protection of lands and seas, and the fight against cancer. There are 5 parts to this initiative, included in the Horizon Europe programme, which starts in 2021. Our guest, Maria Gabriel, European Commissioner for Innovation, Research, Culture, Education and Youth, explains on what basis this important 10-year plan's been designed and what the aims are.
Issues like the fight against cancer, climate change, smart cities and the health of soils, oceans and seawater were chosen because their impact is huge for European citizens. It's because we need to act together to see concrete results. And this is what we see in the recommendations of our reports. For example, the Cancer Mission proposes to save 3 million lives by 2030. Less than 10% of the world's population lives on our continent, but 25% of detected cases are in Europe. We have to act.
What are the key elements for the success of these missions?
First, a mission must be owned by citizens. They must recognise themselves in it, and then through their participation in the process to see results. And that is why I'm pleased that we've been able to set up this process from the beginning. This new framework, a process of co-creation, can be a real game changer for future decisions.
Today we're discussing the EU project on soil health and food. The goal is to restore 70% of agricultural land by 2030. The head of the mission, Cesc Veerman, explains what kind of actions will be taken to achieve the goal.
The most spectacular ones is, of course, to prevent a further degradation of the soil. This is to stop the sealing of the soil, stop the pollution of the soil, make soils more healthy by increasing the level of carbon in the soil, and also the storage of water, so that biodiversity, agriculture, so food production, forestry, but also people living in the cities can all contribute to make soil to bring soil in a better condition.
An example of this approach is the Best for Soil project. We went to Austria to look at a type of soil management that combines nature and science. Soils are essential for all life-sustaining processes on Earth. More than 95% of our food comes from land-related production, and for that reason, keeping soil healthy is key. However, between 60 and 70% of European soils are currently unhealthy in terms of the presence of organic matter and minerals that become nutrients for plants and microorganisms. This is a result of a series of inappropriate land practices, including intensive farming, excess irrigation, and pollution by chemicals and pesticides. Soils are also paying the price of climate change, erosion and sea level rises. In the context of a paradigm shift in agriculture, this farm in Austria is an example of a positive nature-science partnership.
If we combine these two approaches, the solution-oriented approach and the problem-oriented approach, then we will achieve a sustainable solution much faster. We want to work together with science to test and evaluate new solutions and new systems, and then show them to our professional colleagues and to society.
So within the EU project Best for Soil, this Austrian research and demonstration farm is implementing the best practices and also crop rotation to improve soil conditions.
There are different methods that can be used as a farmer, including the application of compost, the sowing of winter cover crops, or intermediate cover crops, or crop rotation. And we use compost immediately after we've harvested a crop. We try to sow a cover crop. The more colourful, the more diverse it is, the more life brought into the soil with the compost, the healthier my soils are. And the less pesticides I have to use, for example.
Depending on the type of soil, nature can take up to 1,000 years to produce a 1 centimetre layer of fertile ground. But it only takes a few years of bad practices to lose it. Best for Soil's project coordinator gives us a sense of the action needed.
I think the challenge for agriculture is to feed the world and the growing world population. And as we see that in many parts of the world, the soil quality is going down due to heavy machinery, to intensive production systems. It is very important that we try to adapt the soil management to sustainable soil management.
Back at the Grand Farm in Austria, compost has a central place in the biodiversity plan. The decomposition of organic matter is part of the natural cycle. Vermicompost, compost produced involving worms, and cover crops, plants that are sown to protect ground from erosion, are two preventive practices to increase the quality of the soil.
This multitude of microorganisms plays an important role in soil health. The greater the number, the greater the diversity of species, the more stable the soil is, the fewer diseases and the fewer problems I have with the soil.
In addition to vermicompost, another type of natural fertiliser widely trialled here is the thermophilic compost. This is a mix of organic matter with carbon and nitrogen content. Researchers like Florian regularly analyse compost in order to check its quality, as well as the components released into soil and atmosphere to avoid contamination. And the process is activated by bacteria and fungi, which produce temperatures of up to 70 degrees Celsius, enough to kill organisms that cause disease.
In the era of climate change, it's very important that we conserve our energy and resources. Biomass is a source of energy, particularly nitrogen, and we have to make sure that we save as much of it as possible.
A market garden's a small-scale example of this nature-based approach. The aim is to produce healthy food with a high variety on a small area and then to sell it locally. Cultivation and harvesting are mostly done by hand, with no heavy machinery used.
Our method of vegetable production has many advantages with economic, ecological and social dimensions. For me personally, the most important thing is that jobs are created, that we have direct contact with the consumer, and that we also provide education, and that we promote and rebuild the soil and the environment.
When managed sustainably, soils are key for the balance of our ecosystems. By acting as a sponge to store carbon and reduce greenhouse gas, soils can mitigate climate change effects. Thanks for watching. You can find more information about these EU projects on the Futuris page, on Euronews.com and on our social media networks.